All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another Linners and Wosers episode. I'm one of your hosts, Riccardo, joined here with my good friend, Nick Rosser. We'll go ahead and talk about some U.S. men's national team. How are you doing today, Nick?
Doing good. I got my Top Gun flow going on my top lip right here. I'm feeling good about the games coming up this week. Not bad.
Nice. I do like the little mustache flow you got going on here. And you were at the Hailstorm game last night, the first home match. How was that?
It was good, exciting atmosphere. Getting a goal in the SC top 10 is pretty good for showing out some local soccer. Hailstorm really brought it that night, even though they tied 1-1. Like the fans were great.
Well, we do have a lot to go ahead and talk about. Nothing about Hailstorm today. Nothing local. We'll go ahead and take it to the macro scale and start chatting up some U.S. men's national team. We have a lot to discuss on the Nations League games coming up here and the roster, what that looks like. We're going to go ahead and put our input on some player stocks that might have gone up or flopped. Also, some transfer rumors. We'll go ahead and discuss that towards the end. And with Qatar 2022 just coming up in less than 6 months, of course, we're going to go ahead and chit-chat about the U.S. odds and what will be happening, what is needed to go ahead and make the U.S. team strong going into that competition. But, Nick, we have a special guest joining us here today to go ahead and talk about the U.S. men's national team. And not going to go ahead and hold our listeners and viewers away from our guests any longer. I'm going to go ahead and introduce you guys to Sean Ackerman. How you doing today, Sean?
Good to be here.
Well, excited you were here at that last Linners and Wosers episode where we talked about the Champions League. I know we haven't had an opportunity to talk about it, guys, but we're not going to go ahead and mention the Champions League final here. I know we have some Liverpool fans with us. But Sean, it's always great to go ahead and have you back here and go ahead and tell listeners a little bit about yourself, your little background in soccer, and we'll chat about US after that.
Well, I grew up playing the game all the way through. Went and played at CSU with you guys, as you guys both know, but to the fans. And then I had a history in coaching. Started back in 2017 here in Durango. Did some club here. Worked with the Fort Lewis head coach at that time, and then went back to Fort Collins and coached with Arsenal there. Did about 3 or 4 teams up there. Now I'm coaching Rio Rapids here in Durango. I got a really good U10 team. Some of my boys have tried out for Barcelona, and they're playing for academy teams these days. So I just really enjoy coaching and hope to take that to the next level.
I know that we tweet out transfer news and we discuss transfer news, but you were keeping us in the loop this morning with some youth transfers that you could possibly be losing
On
2 of your players.
Yeah, the 2012s. Those are.
Well, we're at 2010. They've been playing in 2012 because were last season. We were winning at least 10-0. No joke. Like we had a 23-0 game, 18-0 game, so we had to up the competition a little bit, and so we were more mediocre this year. So
did Ronaldinho score all 23?
Finn Hallinan, remember the name. Yeah, he all 3 seasons I've coached him, he's led in goals and assists. So he's going to be a huge loss. He's one of the ones leaving. He's going to be playing for a New Mexico Academy team. Still train with us as a practice player, but since we're going to be playing in the same league, he cannot play with us, and so that's a big loss. Also, our big number 6, Sammy Clark. He's Damian Clark, the women's Fort Lewis coach. His son, he's going to be leaving as well. So we're going to be missing players on both sides of the field. Sammy was that guy that shuts down the counters, great tackles, all that stuff, and then starts our plays. So
interesting.
Some big losses. But.
All right, before we get to some U.S. national team, I want to show you that I got your scarf for the Storm Chaser Supporters Group for Hailstorm. Just want to let you know it is in. It looks awesome. Clean.
Yeah, nice.
Good for you. Whenever the show's done, I'll send it off. I'll mail it.
And we do have the pictures from last night's game here posted on the Storm Chasers website, which I'll go ahead and post in the comments here to this video. You can go ahead and go and into their photo gallery. I took a peep at a handful of the pictures from last night. Looks like quite a little bit of the Storm Chasers showed up there and had a good time. Love to see it, everyone with their scarves. I'm sure it was a great time. I hope to go ahead and catch the next one here. The midweek was a little bit difficult, but plenty of more home games to come, and I got to get my hands on one of those scarves. So, and same with you, Sean. You got to go ahead and come up here to Denver and Fort Collins to go ahead and catch maybe some Rapids games or some of these NOCO Hailstorm FC games.
Even some local games. We go to Peak 11 a bunch. We're going on Sunday, I think, to watch them play a big U.S. Open Cup qualifying game. So that should be good.
Yeah, we'll go ahead and post more news about that coming up here, and you can go ahead and check out our website. There'll go ahead and be a blog regarding that, but we'll be going to that game here on Sunday at Centaurus High School, I believe, in Lafayette. Peak 11 here against, was it FC Denver?
FC Denver, yes.
Yeah, so it's going to go ahead and be a big match here, and we'll go ahead and bring as much content out for next week, but don't want to go ahead and hold our listeners too much away from our U.S. men's national team chit-chat. So the U.S. heading into the Nations League just a year ago. Nick, you and I had that pleasure to go ahead and go down to Denver and watch the U.S. versus Mexico final, which was absolutely packed with action, with Mexico scoring, U.S. scoring Weston McKennie header, the penalty by Christian Pulisic, Ethan Horvath making the penalty saves, us having to relocate seats just because of the intensity from the fan base. So an absolute fantastic game, and some changes to that lineup since last year. So notable changes like our big man in the back not being part of the U.S. men's national team project. So that's been a hot topic the last year, in which I'm sure we'll go ahead and talk about that towards the end of this video. But Nick, let's go ahead and chit-chat a little bit about last year's Nations League, the U.S. being able to go ahead and take down Mexico in the U.S. Do you think this team here has that energy to go ahead and repeat some success before the World Cup?
Yeah, I think so. I think we'll cruise through this CONCACAF Nations League group through Grenada and El Salvador, I think. And that already puts us in a good position. I think one of the big teams probably won't make it this year. I think Honduras has already lost. You can fact check me on that. But I think, once you hop into a semifinals after this group stage, I think anyone's got a chance. And I think we have the best, most talented squad in the region, if not. I think we are the best, maybe not coached as well as maybe Canada, but I think there's good odds that we go back-to-back.
Go ahead and pose that question for you, Sean, here. Any insight you could go ahead and give us about the U.S. team here? Do you think they can go ahead and repeat that success they had last year?
Well, I think so. Again, our main rival in the region is going to be Mexico, and for me, they're not changing enough. It seems like they're just aging. There isn't any real desire, creativity that I see. Meanwhile, I feel like the U.S. is still trending upwards. I think we're really cohesive as a squad. We're still trying to work on some areas on the field, but the talent has been speaking for itself lately, and I just think that we're just too tough to beat in that area. So, I think it's hands down the U.S. are going to just cruise through it, like Nick said.
Well said. With the exclusion of some of the players that we are not seeing from last year, like John Brooks, Josh Sargent, depending if Gio Reyna is healthy enough, not on the roster here.
Tim Ream.
Kellen Acosta got to start in that final, but he's on the roster here. We'll go ahead and pull up. But although without those notable names that I went ahead and mentioned earlier, Nick, you brought up the point that we still have the best depth pool of players in the region, and that should go ahead and be enough to go ahead and boost us to go ahead and win another back-to-back Nations League trophy. So that one definitely felt special against Mexico. I'm going to go ahead here and now put up the roster for us here so we can go ahead and get a little bit of these roster reaction of some of the players and then just discuss on that a little bit as I do that here.
Don't worry. I'll have plenty to say.
Here you guys go. Nations League roster, the USA, 2 matches here this June against Grenada and El Salvador. Be honest, fellas, can you point to where Grenada is on the map?
No.
Just not quite.
I can barely point to where El Salvador is on the map, to be honest. My geography is a little bit bad.
Thankfully you have a lot of great soccer insight, so
it's
keep
off
that as a strong suit.
The Florida coast. I mean, quite a ways away, but it's out towards the Caribbean. Very small. Not anything to challenge us out on the football pitch. So,
well, you see, just our pool of players here in goal, bringing in Ethan Horvath, hero from last year's Nations League final. Sean Johnson here being called back to the U.S. men's national team, trying to go ahead and make a statement here ahead of the World Cup here to see if he's going to go ahead and be one of the three that's going to go be taken to Qatar. He did get some minutes against Uruguay. We'll go ahead and discuss that. And then Matt Turner, fan favorite, Arsenal bound. Pretty solid list of goalkeepers to go ahead and chit-chat about. I know Zach Steffen had to go ahead and pull out due to some family reasons, is what I read. But overall, let's go ahead and just discuss our goalkeeper situation here ahead of these two matches. Nick, I'll start with you. Before I go ahead and ask you your insight on each of these players, who do you think should go ahead and be the one that starts in these two matches, and why?
Since we already know what Sean Johnson's about. He's played for the national team before. He's getting toward his 30s at this point. I think we should probably give Matt Turner the start. Zach Steffen's just got to go through what he's going through. I hope he goes through it. I hope he comes out stronger or whatever's going on. But I think Ethan Horvath has gotten probably the short end of the stick since the Nations League heroics. I know he hasn't been called up really, hasn't been playing. And I thought he was outstanding when Steffen went off injured. So I want to see one Matt Turner game. I want to see one Ethan Horvath game just to see how they look.
You don't want to see any games for Johnson here?
No, I think we already know where he's at. And I think he's like a fourth choice goalie anyway. So I think we don't really need to see him between the sticks.
Okay, I'll go ahead and ask that same question for you, Sean. If you go ahead and agree with what Nick has to say, but who is your goalkeeper to go ahead and start in these matches and why?
Well, for me, I agree with Nick. Sean Johnson just isn't there. He's not to that level. He's good for MLS standards, but he's not quite to the national team level. I also agree with Nick on Ethan Horvath not getting the reward for his battle in the Nations League last year. For me, I think it's got to be Ethan Horvath because of his contribution to Forest going up in the Premier League. Matt Turner is great, and this goalkeeper list screams to me an opportunity for someone to step up because it's obviously been a debatable topic with Steffen not playing as much for City, and who's going to be that next guy. So I think this is a good opportunity, and like Nick said, maybe rotate him a little bit and just see how each player plays. So, I think Horvath is the starter for me, but give Turner some minutes. Sean Johnson, I don't care for seeing.
Because I don't know. I just want Matt Turner's going to also be riding bench this next year at Arsenal. Steffen's going to continue to ride bench. Forrest is probably going to look for a starting goalkeeper since Samba's out. I just want to see someone step up for the national team. Like actually,
it looks like Johnson is the only one getting the minutes.
It is. That is true. But I mean, I think I would pick Steffen.
Is this a level? If we look at the matches that we're going up against, Grenada and El Salvador, is this a match that Johnson could go ahead and get some minutes? That if he doesn't get these minutes, we could go ahead and lose out on some of that experience, maybe down the road towards Qatar. Because again, the situation with Turner and Steffen is that they'll be fighting for minutes in the Prem next year, especially if Steffen stays at City. But with Ethan Horvath, it's unsure here if he'll go ahead and find some minutes and where. But it sounds like you don't want to go ahead and give Johnson the minute, guys. You want to go ahead and experiment with Ethan Horvath. But at the same time, Matt Turner should still go ahead and get some minutes in one of these games.
Yeah, I think Matt Turner's been the best goalie for the national team recently, and just because he also was the best goalie in the MLS. I just don't think just because Sean Johnson's the one getting minutes, he brings too much value that Matt Turner still brings. And so I think should be the number one. Like I said, I would love to give Ethan Horvath probably the tougher game with El Salvador, just to see how he is. But for Matt Turner, this first game is more about his distribution from his feet, because that's where he lacks the most, and he's definitely improved, and that's probably where he'll take that number one spot over Stefan, because he's a better shot stopper, and if he just improves his footwork, then he can play triple G game, So
what reason would now? Sometimes Greg doesn't go ahead and do what we think is best. So let's go ahead and just put the scenario that Sean Johnson is playing against Grenada here. What would be the reason why he's given him minutes, other than the fact of what you guys have said, why the other two should be playing?
It'll be form and probably playing similar competition to Grenada in the MLS.
Well, agree with that, Sean?
Well, I agree with that, and also just that he's been in between the sticks the last couple of games. He's got the experience, more recently. So, just kind of keep continuity and just move that into the tournament. But again, like we said, we're seeing other options.
Yeah.
Well, I'll go ahead and move up to the defenders here, so we can go ahead and get to the rest of the squad. Defenders, start off with George Bello, Reggie Cannon, Cameron Carter-Vickers, Aaron Long, fan favorite, Eric Palmer-Brown, Anthony Robinson, Joe Scally, DeAndre Yedlin, and Walker Zimmerman. I actually got the chance to watch Walker Zimmerman play when Nashville started cooking the Colorado Rapids a few weeks ago here at Dick's Sporting Goods Park. Man's a tall figure on the field, makes his presence known, and it was nice to go ahead and see another U.S. international play on the field. Last year, I got the opportunity to see Kellen Acosta, but now outside of Trusty, who will get maybe a call-up some years, hopefully, he's not going to get the call-up anytime maybe after the World Cup if he has good form at Arsenal. He is leaving the Rapids here soon, but yeah, watching Walker Zimmerman play was kind of nice. But guys, Cameron Carter-Vickers in hot form, Aaron Long getting the minutes, Eric Palmer-Brown not playing so hot the past recent results, Joe Scally, Anthony Robinson, DeAndre Yedlin. How are we feeling about the defenders in this pool?
Well, for me, I don't know. I watched Joe Scally play against Uruguay, and I thought he was way out of his depths. Like, he was turnover after turnover, getting caught out of position. Potentially a player for the future, but I don't think he should be there yet. He's not there. Anthony Robinson, I think, has solidified his spot at left back. Maybe not so good defensively. He still makes up for it at times, but he's great getting forward around the outside, always making overlapping runs. So I think he deserves to be there. I think he deserves a start. I don't know about DeAndre Yedlin. I think we've got plenty of other solid right backs that can play in front of him. And as you said, Cameron Carter-Vickers, I've been a fan of him for a long time, and he's just not gotten the shot. So I think potentially him and Walker Zimmerman starting together, and that's my back line. I think that would be a solid back line out of these players here, but I think there's some good players that didn't make the team.
Okay, yeah, to defend Joe Scally, he is a right back. He is defending with Aaron Long, who I think is pretty horrible. I'll have my opinion on that. I'll let the MLS guys come at me, but I think he's pretty horrible, and we're just screwed when it comes to having a backup left back. Anthony Robinson's the only person. If he goes down, I don't trust Sam Bynes enough. I don't trust George Bello at all. I don't trust Joe Scally or Serginho Dest to even be playing out of position. Watching Walker Zimmerman, I didn't really like him before, but I'm starting to like him now. He has really good.
I agree.
He has really good ability, compared to Aaron Long, where Aaron Long is a turnover machine. Walker Zimmerman is really good at playing the ball out of the back and bringing us forward in positive situations. So Walker Zimmerman definitely is impressed. So far, he is probably the only starting center back at the World Cup so far that I would have. I think the biggest winner of these last two games was Chris Richards and honestly John Anthony Brooks, because there was no solid center back pairing these last two games. I'm sure these next two games will give us a little bit of an insight into that, but yeah, I think those are the big winners for the defenders. And DeAndre Yellen should not be on this field anymore. So
I agree. And everything said about Zimmerman. I mean, I wasn't the biggest fan of him for a long time, but he's shown much improvement. And like you say, his distribution in that game against Uruguay, he was playing balls over the top, getting forwards in behind. I thought he was solid back there. We just got that partner, and I think Brooks is there. He's just not getting his chance.
Brooks is not even getting the calls up.
Yeah, I don't understand that at all. But
well, to Walker Zimmerman's credit, that was a very nice assist to Pulisic over the top on Morocco. That was like a good example of what he can do. So it's good to see.
Just gotta get that partner for him.
Yeah, I'm not sure where Rico went.
Yeah, I don't know.
I guess we'll just move on to the midfielders. What midfielders impressed you over the last 2 games? Were there any? We have, off the top of my head, we have Kellen Coates on the roster. We have Luca De La Torre, Yunus Musa, Weston McKennie. I'll count Brendan Aronson because he was playing the 8.
Yep.
And
then Tyler Adams has been in there.
Yeah, I think Tyler Adams is under fire right now. He's
too long on the ball at times, and he tries to dribble it when he's in a tight situation. When he needs to release it, just do a quick little pass 5 yards away, but he dribbles and then loses it. I still think he's solid, but at the moment, his form isn't showing. And Musa, I think, is top class, at least potentially. And, he's not there yet, but I think that he helps pull the strings in that midfield, and he's a solid 8 that works his butt off to get back and help distribute.
He's like one of the best players on the midfield that can actually move the ball forward. Like he can, whether it's a nice breakthrough pass or it's a breakthrough dribble. I know he went on a bunch of little dribble quests the other games that he could have probably released the ball a little bit earlier to someone, but he definitely has that ability, and he's one of our special players for the future, I think. So.
And meanwhile, we got Herculez Gomez saying that he's the poor man's Darlington Nagbe, and it shows the lack of knowledge that American commentators have, the Lexi Wallaces of the world and all that. But
dude, Grant Wall, speaking of these whack-ass, sorry, everyone. Speaking of these whack media reporters for the U.S., he wrote a whole argument, put it behind a paywall, saying, like, Aaron Long is basically, like, the starter for Qatar.
No.
And I'm like,
absolutely not.
I'm like, how is this not propaganda for, like, the league? Like, you're a U.S. men's national team writer. You're not an MLS writer. You got to be partisan. You can't.
And that seems to be the case with a lot of these pundits. Like Alexi Wallace is always pushing for it. Taylor Twellman's always pushing for it.
They do it to get views. And our biggest advice to people is just to not give them any attention toward, don't give them the clicks. That's all they want to do is clickbait you. But it's really good to see Luca De La Torre now in the lineup. The U.S. fans that we get criticized for wanting supposedly a third division Lithuanian because he doesn't play in MLS, the whack narrative that's been going around. But everyone's been calling for Luca De La Torre, who was on the bottom toward the Eredivisie on this team, but he's so talented. And we finally had a good chance to see that he's a much better 8 than Roldan. And
Roldan does not belong in the national team. But I think Luca De La Torre, I can't remember what game it was. It was during World Cup qualifying where he came on. And I was so impressed by him. His ability to find good passes. He looks for dummies. Like, he's creative. He shows a lot of stuff that you don't typically see.
It's just the quality of the league he plays in. He has to play quicker. Like, no one's going to deny that the MLS is getting better. I don't want to sound like an MLS hater on this podcast, but yeah. What was I saying?
Well, Luca De La Torre versus MLS players.
Yeah, there's too much space in the MLS that they actually don't know like what to do in a final third situation for a lot of these people, because like they're not going to be given the same freedom. And it's even international soccer where you're given way more freedom than it is even in a European top 5 league. And I haven't seen like a translation of, like, they haven't translated well. And you can even see it with Paul Arriola having the form of his life in the MLS.
Yep.
And
Yep.
He looks like a Kia Forte behind the Lamborghini when he subbed on for Tim Weah. You know, like, and we're talking, this is Paul's best form. Like, if this is Paul's best form, we might as well put in my areolas. You know, like, it's crazy.
I hate to do this to you guys, but we have to go back to talking about defenders. And Nick, I heard what you were saying. It was beautiful. I know.
Well, no, I thought we got through defenders before we lost you.
Before you lost me, but it's gonna be choppy on my sound. It's gonna be like Nick's gonna go. But here and there, I could hear him chit chat about who he wants as a starting and progressing from the ball in the back. So it was great. I'm gonna go ahead and just re-ask that question for you, Nick, and then.
Well, man, we had a whole combo.
I know. I said save your thoughts. I don't know if
All right, we're starting from where? Are you just gonna delete like the last section where we
could like cut into it in different parts, because maybe that part between Nick and me with midfield still shows up, but we'll see.
Okay, you know what? I'll leave it. I'll leave the defenders part if you guys should chat it up. Even after I left, you guys still talked?
Yeah, we talked a lot about midfield. We talked about Luca de la Torre, Yunus Musa heavily, and Roldan not belonging in there as much.
Okay.
But yeah,
I'll go
we
ahead
can
and
still keep going on that because we haven't touched on a lot of these players.
I'll just edit this part in. Okay, thanks for having me back. I'll just go ahead and put my input on the defenders real quick. I think Walker Zimmerman, Cameron Carter-Vickers should go ahead and be the starting pair. Not a huge fan of Aaron Long. Eric Palmer-Brown didn't play so well the past few days. It's okay not to go ahead and start him, have him as a sub in case of injury. But go ahead and move on from the defenders, guys. Be quick here, catch up to the conversation. And you guys mentioned Luca de la Torre a little bit. I was against the player at the beginning of the year. I'm enjoying what I'm seeing. He's been really fluid under the system, being able to break the lines and showing some of those progressive balls to our attackers. Really like him being thrown into midfield. Hopefully he sees a little bit more minutes these next two games, especially with Tyler Adams not showing really good form and him being in the middle of a transfer process. I don't know if the Leipzig situation or if I know he's linked with Leeds, Benfica, and Sevilla is what I read here. And we'll discuss that a little bit on the transfers. But Luca de la Torre, I'm pro and fan of the player at the moment. With Weston McKennie coming back from injury here, he's definitely the best, one of the top 5 players in CONCACAF. So definitely should go ahead and tear up these next few matches. Hopefully he gets those minutes as well and is not rested. And alongside Yunus Musa, that's a killer midfield right there. I think those two have that work engine to go ahead and go up and down the field, and they're very capable of joining the attack, whether that be in the box to header, shoot outside the box, give those progressive passes. I mean, we saw what kind of threat Weston McKennie is in the air, and Yunus Musa has the ability to shoot from far. Just want to go ahead and ask you guys. I know that Jordi Mihalovic is out now. Malik Tillman, Christian Roldan, and Kellen Acosta. Next 2 games here. Who is going to go ahead and get some minutes? Your thoughts and why?
Vibes and eyes guy. Christian Roldan's going to get some minutes. He is one of Greg's boys. And I've been saying it already. Someone told me on Twitter to stop this narrative, but I'm like, this is Greg's boy, like he will play. Even though Brendan Aronson dropped down at the 8 and he was just lights out, like one of the best players on the field, playing in the midfield. He actually, after watching these last couple games, I personally don't want an MMA midfield anymore.
What are you thinking?
I want Gio Reyna or Brendan Aronson at the 8. Like, I think none of the other guys are as creative as we'd like to actually break forward, because Moose is still a little bit off, and McKinney is more of just like a box-to-box.
Yeah.
Well, and I'd like to see a 4-2-3-1. More so have Tyler Adams and McKennie, or Musa, a little bit deeper in the field, and then Aronson just in front of them as a 10, and have Pulisic and, preferably Reyna, he's out right now, but those type of players on the wings. And again, it's just, we've got some decent midfielders. We really do. Kellen Acosta can come in and be a game changer if we're in a tight situation. I don't know too much about Malik Tillman, but I understand he's a great player, and I'm glad that he chose the U.S. over Germany. But yeah,
I hear his brother is also choosing. His brother's leaning towards the U.S. as well.
He's not as good, but we'll take it.
We'll say, though, although Kellen Acosta might come in and change the game, he's definitely one of the players who can go ahead and retain the ball and be an engine and go ahead and press players and continuing to go ahead and be aggressive, which is great. But again, going back to Nick, your point here, where is that creativity? Where are those passes coming from? And you're sacrificing having one of our attackers coming in deeper. Luca Del Torre definitely has some of those qualities where he can definitely split the lines, play balls over the top, and engage 1-2 with the attackers. Weston McKennie being a little bit box to box, perhaps doesn't have a little bit of those qualities where he can be creative. But if you're willing to go ahead and it sounds like sacrifice one of the attackers, have him come back. Same with you, Sean, in your formation, the 4-2-3-1, having Brendan Aronson play the 10. Yeah, that's something that's been talked about a lot, especially recently. The discussion of if someone can go ahead and play that 10 position. I personally don't think that Greg Berhalter is going to go ahead and change up the formation. He's going to go ahead and keep that diamond 3. I think he's going to go ahead and keep that and not experiment with a 10 and 2 in the pivot. But if he does, that could go ahead and have definitely a little bit more of that option. One of those attackers come back and give us opportunities from deeper up the field to go ahead and find those spaces in behind. So I don't know. Greg is probably not going to go ahead and change with that diamond midfield there. If anything, Tyler Adams, Luca De La Torre, Kellen Acosta might be a little bit of a closer battle in these next 2 games just based on form here. Who's going to go ahead and get the minutes? In terms of 8, I think that Weston and Yunus Musa are going to go ahead and keep playing that. Because of who we're facing, Nick, you're right. I think Christian Roldan's probably going to go ahead and get some minutes here. Definitely 60, 70 minutes. Go ahead and come in there and play in the game. And I don't know. We'll go ahead and move over to the attackers here, unless you guys have any closing thoughts here before we move on the midfielders.
Well, just to reiterate that Musa, I think, is solid. I think he's a classy player, and I think he's a solid number 8, works defensively, and he's really creative on the ball. So I think he's guaranteed a starting role, in my opinion.
I'm just having a conundrum in my head where to play people, because where I've seen Gio Reyna the best is in the middle, not on the wing. And watching him at Dortmund, watching him even at the U.S. game in the last couple World Cup qualifying matches when he was playing more central, he was so good at delivering the passes. He was so good at everything. And I'm having a conundrum in my head on how you're going to fit Tim Weah, Christian Pulisic, Brendan Aronson, Gio Reyna, McKennie, Musa, Adams all on one field. And I don't know.
Some players are going to have to sit, and you're going to have to go ahead and find those qualities in those players that who can be the game changer in the 75th minute, in the 60th minute if needed, in the 85th, who can go ahead and be that game changer in just those few minutes. And I'll go ahead and move over to the attackers because we have quite the list as well. Brendan Aronson, Paul Oriola, Jordan Morris, Christian Pulisic, Tim Weah, and Haji Wright here. You can already sense the Ariola joke coming from you, Nick, that yours can play better. But you guys have talked about Brendan Aronson. He's another player with a profile who can go ahead and play deeper in the midfield, a little bit more central, especially at that 10 role. With the move to Leeds here, playing under a U.S. manager, definitely can go ahead and have a boost of confidence there, and his form can go ahead and definitely pick up right before the World Cup, hopefully. But in these next 2 games, I think he's definitely needs to go ahead and start or definitely get the minutes here because a lot of the attack has been flowing through him, and he's shown great hunger, a little bit more than I think Christian Pulisic. So right now, whether he starts at the flank or if he's going to go ahead and play in of a more central role in this next few games, I'm about it. I'm going to go ahead and be honest. I'm very optimistic about Brendan Aronson right now for the U.S., so am I for Timothy Weah, but a little bit more for Brendan Aronson.
Okay. Yeah, I think Brendan Aronson has to be starting. His U.S. form is just too good to not be in a starting position. I feel like you're worse off leaving him on the bench, even coming in as a cameo. So I want to see the 9 be sorted out. And if you have to throw one of our wingers as a false 9, I know Tim Weah hates playing the 9, but I still see qualities that Pulisic can bring to the 9, and you can have Weah and Aronson flank, or I don't know, have
Let's go
Aronson
ahead
sit
and
under and Reina flank.
Nick, you bring up a good point. Let's go ahead and chit chat here about the striker or number 9 situation for the United States. You're talking about, again, experimentation, having more of our attackers, which are predominantly wingers, it looks like, come in and play a little bit of that central roles. We've seen profiles like Riccardo Pepi, Jesus Ferreira, now Haji Wright. Who else am I missing that's been playing in the 9 recently for the U.S.? Jordan Pifok got the moments.
Jesus, did you say him?
Yeah, Jesus Ferreira. And there's still a lot of questions going around of who is going to go ahead and be the number 9 for the United States. Some of the players that we have are that kind of profile that are the target man. So mentioned like Jordan Pifok here. I'm missing one more here. The gentleman who had great time in the championship. No, not Charles Sargent. Gentleman who had a great time in the championship. I think Daryl Dike. There it is. As soon as I saw the purple scarf, Nick, in the back, it just popped up ahead. So he is another player who plays that target man role where you have Riccardo Pepi, Jesus Ferreira, a little bit more with that flair, being able to go ahead and run off the shoulders and maybe break, through the fence, through the lines. But it's not enough. I think the number 9 situation right now is one of the top 2 problems, the top 3 problems the United States needs to go ahead and resolve going into the World Cup. And Nick, you're talking about experimenting. I've had that thought myself. What would it look like if we had Timothy Weah playing that number 9, being able to go ahead and cut through the lines of the defense, being able to receive through balls, and maybe even taking players of the center backs on, running off the shoulder. That's an opportunity. He's a little bit taller than Christian Pulisic and Brendan Aronson, so he could definitely go ahead and be more advantageous to be able to bring the ball down. But I don't know. None of the other guys that I mentioned earlier, with Riccardo Pepi, Jesus Ferreira, Daryl Dike, Jordan Pifok, none of them right now are just kind of even Haji Wright. None of them right now are just in my head with, they need to go ahead and be the number 9 going into this World Cup. Sean, what are your thoughts?
Well, for me, a few things. I agree with both of you. And for one, Nick was exactly on my wavelength in terms of having that false 9, whether it be Tim Weah or Christian Pulisic. I don't know if Aronson would be the one to do that. But for me, those 3 are the only 3 out of that list of players that we've seen that should be on the field at any point. And it sucks because we do need a number 9. We need someone who's going to be in there and score some goals and keep the man in the middle. But unfortunately, the list of players that we said that have been in and out of the team have not been consistent enough. They've had 2 or 3 good games or 1 good game and then a run of bad games. So it's just not consistent enough to solidify that position. So hopefully in this Nations League, one of these other guys steps up, whether it be Jordan Morris, whether it be Haji Wright. But I don't see it. And
Jordan Morris.
Morris.
I don't see it. Like I said. But hopefully one of these guys just proves me wrong and proves that they should be on the field.
I think so far Riccardo Pepi is still my starting forward. He's actually had some success with the U.S. men's national team to an extent. He's not having very much club success, but he did move to a different continent, playing in a league that's a lot harder tactically, at least in the MLS. Even probably a little bit skill level. So I think hopefully he has a couple good starting months for Augsburg this next year. I think Josh Sargent is going to find success in the championship. My only worry with him is he hasn't translated it with the national team, much like a lot of these successful forwards. Pifok scoring the most goals in Switzerland to Haji Wright bagging like 16, 17 in Turkey. Like, we're still waiting for that clinical 9, but I haven't seen much from Jesus. He's in his best form of his career so far, and he misses every chance he gets for the U.S. He didn't get as badly reamed out as Pifok did for his miss, but Jesus hasn't been too impressive. He's good at getting in the areas, but he just lacks the quality. at the end. I think he'll have a successful national team career in the future, but he won't have a starting role in Qatar for me.
I mean, the thing with Ricardo Pepi is that he also has a lot of pressure with a lot of things that happen so quick in his career with the big move and a lot of pushing because, Dallas wasn't willing to give up on him so easily. And then coming to a team struggling a little bit in the Bundesliga and him struggling to find form, a lot of that could play a huge role on a player's mental health and their confidence. So, if he's taking those opportunities with the U.S. men's national team, I think he needs to go ahead and make the most of them. And the fans expect a lot, especially right now when we have a situation where we don't have a solidified number 9. So right now, all eyes are on that position, and there's, U.S. fan base is very critical of each player. I mean, if we had a number 9 that was starter for sure, lock in, and then we're just watching a bunch of guys being experimented, I think would be a little bit more softer on these guys. And Jesus Ferreira is having a lot of great form here in MLS. Even Jordan Morris plays pretty good here in the MLS, but a lot of these guys can't translate it over to the national team's level. I mentioned Walker Zimmerman earlier, a player I got to see. I did see Jordan Morris and Christian Roldan when Seattle came to play here at Dick's Sporting Good Park. Both players, different kind of technical ability. Looks like Jordan Morris is more of a waiter for the ball to come and then runs in behind. Missed an opportunity to chip our goalkeeper. Our defender made a run back and cleared it. Yeah, not that huge of a threat, just looking at him. I wasn't, seeing that passion, that hunger towards goal. I don't know. Maybe some of these players, Nick, you are on that conspiracy of they're Greg boys, that Greg will continue to go ahead and call them up. Hopefully here with these few games that are just Nations League, after that, we don't go ahead and see them being called up to Qatar 2022. I don't know. Paul Arriola, would you be too mad if he got called up?
I mean, I'd be mad if he got any minutes, but I guess I wouldn't try to stress a 26th spot on the roster. So
sure. Guys, I want to go ahead and go ahead
just
and
add to that real quick. Like Nick was saying earlier, Ariola's form in the MLS has been great, but it doesn't translate to the national team. But he's shown moments in the past, so potentially could be a game changer, but unlikely.
I mean, I'll make my Areolas jokes all day long, but he's got some quality. But oh man, it's just is that quality that we saw against Uruguay B team? Like, is that going to translate at the world's biggest stage? Like, I don't want to be embarrassed out there.
I mean, some of the players that you have to go up against, thinking of just our group alone, I think Davies for Wales at the left back, Shaw at the left back position. These are players that Ariola would have to go ahead and go and face against. Depending on who else you face in the tournament, you have, Theo Hernandez for France, Jordi Alba for Spain, bunch of world-class left backs that a player of that quality, you have expectations to at least provide crosses in, beat players. So is this a moment for him? You sound like you'd be upset if he got some minutes, which don't blame you. I guess for a 26th, 25th position on the roster, yeah, you're there to warm up the players, be there in training, stuff like that if needed. Exactly. But,
be a dummy in the wall.
115th minute in the semifinals against France, you need to bring in fresh legs. Do you bring in the Ariolas?
I bring in Greg Berhalter.
Guys, I'll go ahead and discuss here a few recent results for the U.S. men's national team here. 2 matches against Morocco here. The USA was victorious 3-0. And then against, you said it, Uruguay B team, USA tied it 0-0. Some highlights here from the match that we'll go ahead and discuss. Goal scorers, Brendan Aronson, Timothy Weah, Haji Wright. And then over at the Uruguay game, no goals. It was a Uruguay weaker side. We had Sean Johnson in goal, which seemed like it surprised a lot of the fan base there. Why is he getting minutes?
You could argue we were a little bit weaker too.
And then we'll go ahead and discuss how this game was a preparation for the World Cup up ahead, what that means for the U.S. playing against teams of this caliber, especially against their B teams, if this is what the production is going to look like. But I'll kick it off to you, Nick. Give us a little bit of insight here on the positives from the Morocco game and how that then translate over to the U.S. game.
The best thing I saw from both games is that we stopped relying on Berhalter cross ball. It wasn't so much relying on because we're struggling to hit that number 9 anyway, and most of our offensive tactics is cross ball. So I saw in the Morocco game, Uruguay's a little bit tougher, so we resorted back to it. But in the Morocco game, they were actually finding goals through the middle, like breaking teams down through the middle, and I think that's going to be where we're most dangerous. That's why I really want an Aronson or a Gio Reyna playing an 8 or something, a 10, so they can break through, because we're not going to find success if we can't find a 9. And we saw that in the Uruguay game, that Jesus Ferreira is just not that 9 to break down a team with that much organization and that much grit and strength in the back. So, but this was a good test. I think both of these are World Cup bound nations, and I think Morocco also didn't have all their starters, but they're in the same situation where a lot of their fringe guys are still trying to make the starting lineup. So it was a good test for everybody, I think.
Sean, for you, does this result against these two nations kind of depict an image of what the United States is kind of sitting at going ahead into the World Cup?
Yeah, I do. It shows they're inconsistent right now. Thought they played decent football against Morocco, against kind of a lesser team, but it was still a good performance. Whereas a lot of people were chatting up that a 0-0 result against Uruguay was a good result. I don't think so whatsoever, just because, as mentioned by you guys, that it was the B team. No Suarez, no Cavani, Darwin Núñez.
Two starters, essentially in.
Valverde wasn't in there. Godin's aging, but anyway, I think on both sides that was just a poor performance. Uruguay weren't very great. U.S. weren't great. And again, you mentioned the crossball. It's like, why are we playing that style if we don't have a solidified number 9? You got to find different ways to play if you don't have that player in the box. And Sean Johnson got a lot of hype, but I think a lot of it was a little lucky in that game. And we've already mentioned how we feel about that. But with all that said, we've got to really pick up our performances if we're going to play like that, moving forward. Because the only reason that the U.S. didn't lose that game is because Uruguay were equally bad. So, anyways, I just think we got to improve moving forward because that wasn't good enough.
Your thoughts, Rico?
No, just want to go ahead and agree with what you said, Sean. This depicts a right image for the United States of their inconsistency on how they perform on games against teams that might lay out a team that is a weaker side. They're able to go ahead and move with that ball fluid, being able to break lines and give other options on how they attack rather than that traditional Greg ball where it is out wide, crossing it into the 9, which didn't really work in the Uruguay game with Jesus Ferreira right now. And with the number 9 position still at question, we need to go ahead and be able to break down organized teams like Uruguay, well-established, well-coached technical players. Although an aging back line, these are players with experience that played in the back for Uruguay. So some of our players who are on the edge here of trying to go ahead and make this roster ahead of Qatar need to go ahead right now and take a priority in the national team level. At least that's in my opinion, to show a little bit more hunger. Because if I was one of these guys like Haji Wright, Jesus Ferreira, Ricardo Pepi, any minutes I get for the U.S. men's national team, I'd be trying to make the most of it. Whether that be a few shots in there, getting in the ball header, winning a few tackles in the box, maybe a late time on a chance. That's what I'm saying. It's just that show that aggression and that hunger that I'm here to go ahead and solidify this spot that I want it the most. And then we'll work on it to go ahead and make sure that I'm able to go ahead and provide for the team. Because with all this experimentation, we need to go ahead and find that solidified starting 11 ahead of Qatar and start building on that chemistry, I think. Making sure that these players are being able to break down other teams together on the,
Well, on top of that, it's kind of hard for them to even show anything because if they have one bad game, then there's one of 5 other forwards coming in to replace them. It's like I feel like Berhalter's got to be a little bit more patient. Like, yes, we need a solution quickly, but just because they get one chance, one game, and they don't perform give them another chance. Like, don't just all of a sudden be like, okay, we're going to try someone else out, and then that person doesn't work out. We'll try someone else out. Like, allow them to get some sort of comfort, you know? I'm pretty much a perfectionist as a coach too, but at times you still got to let those players that are struggling have some more time. You can't just all of a sudden, oh, you messed up, gone, So I just think some of these guys need to get a little bit more opportunity in a string of games, and just maybe they'll take it. If they don't show it, then you go to someone else.
I totally agree. That's why I don't think we shouldn't be 5 months away from the World Cup trying to find number 9. I felt like the Nations League, or no, at least the Gold Cup last year, should have been a good opportunity to start testing out some new players. But we brought a pretty weakened squad, players that are not going to be featuring in this national team anytime soon, or even at the World Cup. And Greg hasn't experimented with a lot of guys. We're now starting to see some number 9s come in. We got Ferreira playing. We got Pifok that finally got some minutes. We got Haji Wright. But for the main part, it was Greg's boys that were still going for a while when we could have been testing out players in others' positions. And I hate to say it, but Grant Wall, Matt Doyle, and all those people are wrong, and they piss me off when they're saying, like, we don't do our homework and stuff. It's like we called Luca Della Torre coming. We know Chris Richards is good. We know that Sebastian Lletget is definitely out the door, like he's not good enough. We finally ridded ourselves from that San Jose Earthquakes center defensive mid. What's his name? Jackson Ewell. It's I blame Greg. I don't think he's actually spread out the minutes in an appropriate way to make this team better. I think he's tried to be comfortable, since losing in 2019 to the Gold Cup to Mexico. He's only been doing stuff that makes him feel comfortable. And yes, we're going to beat CONCACAF nations up. That's just how it is. We're a country of 340 million people, and we have good athletes here. We have money here. We'll find a way to beat CONCACAF nations out. I haven't seen anything impressive from Greg so far. And then in his toughest match, even against the Uruguay B, I was very unimpressed.
And on top of that, I think Pulisic needs to lower his responsibility. Even he commented that he tries to do too much when playing for the national team. Against Uruguay, I see him trying to dribble through 3 guys when he's got 2 easy passes to get out of it. It just seems like he's trying to always go down this tunnel, and I just think he needs to kind of make a little bit smarter decisions. And, going in the World Cup, he's got to be our man. Like, he is our man, and we got other players like Reyna and Aronson that can step up and all that, but Pulisic is our guy, and he needs to make the right decisions. You see it with Messi. Messi knows when to pass it, he knows when to dribble it, he knows when to shoot it. Pulisic's just a little bit too much on the dribbling side of things for me at the moment.
That's a great comparison, Messi and Pulisic.
The Michael Jordan of soccer and the LeBron James. That's a crazy comparison.
Well, we are only 5 months away from the Qatar World Cup here, so we are only left with short-term options to go ahead and fix whatever problems we have going into this World Cup. I'll leave it up to you guys first. We discussed the number 9 situation. But what else is needed to happen for the U.S. men's national team to go into Qatar 2022 strong? I'll go ahead and start by just going ahead and say, and that is resolving the center back situation. I know that we discussed that a little bit earlier, but man, I think we all know it. Defense wins, championship. At the end of the day, a solid defense, and I think with Serginho Dest and Anthony Robinson as our fullbacks, there we are in good hands. And then we have options that could come off the bench to go ahead and support those players that I think are not too bad, with options like George Bello, Joe Scally being able to go ahead and come at left back, right back as well. But the center back situation right now is who's going to go ahead and pair up. I know that right now Walker Zimmerman is one of those options, that's for sure, because a lot of the players feel like he has that leadership and that presence in the back that John Brooks has left behind now that he has not been getting the minutes for the U.S. men's national team. A good player to go ahead and build out from the back as well. But right next to Walker Zimmerman is the questions, and some of those names being thrown around prior to injuries, were Miles Robinson, Chris Richards. Now we have Aaron Long, Cameron Carter-Vickers, Eric Palmer-Brown. And lastly, still getting the snubs is John Brooks. What a that's a super depth of players that could go ahead and at all. You can make combinations of center backs for with all those names that could go ahead and start for the U.S. men's national team. But right now, the fan base and at least those who really take this team seriously, who want to go ahead and show that we are a strong team on the field, feel like John Brooks getting the snub is the biggest issue. I think the beef between the player and the coach needs to go ahead and be squashed. It's a player that everyone wants back. I feel like, guys, if we see John Brooks back, do we pair him up next to Walker Zimmerman, or do we
Yes.
take him over Walker Zimmerman and then try out Cameron Carter-Vickers, Chris Richards?
Well, for
Sean,
me,
you jumped in. Yes, go ahead. Go ahead.
as a coach, you gotta have a solidified pairing. You can't be rotating that around as much as other positions. You know, you can tinker with other positions on the field, but you gotta have that solid duo that you're confident in. They're gonna perform together. They understand each other. They have a relationship with each other. And right now, it seems like Zimmerman is the solidified choice, and I think that's justified. But it's like, all right, we're gonna trickle in different players to play alongside him, but we're, what, 5 months away from the World Cup, and we're still trying to figure out a partnership. We need that solidified so they're playing together consistently and having that relationship and understanding. So
Exactly. We have 4 more matches until the World Cup. 2 more competitive matches in Nations League and 2 friendlies in September, I think. So it's not enough minutes left to even be considering like multiple center back partnerships like Aaron Long with Zimmerman, Chris Richards and Zimmerman, or John Brooks and Zimmerman at this point. So I think you just got to bring your best center backs.
Who are our best center backs in this pool right now, Nick?
Our best center backs are definitely Walker Zimmerman, not Aaron Long. Goodbye. John Anthony Brooks should be starting with, I think, Walker Zimmerman. I'll be honest. And then I think Chris Richards is the third option. And then I think you go Cameron Carter-Vickers. And then the rest are probably 2026.
Yep, agreed. And Brooks should be there.
Brooks is a leader. He scored, and he's only one of the only players with any – he might be the only player with World Cup experience on this national team.
Yeah, that is true.
Like, I don't think people understand that they're walking in the jungle, and they might not be coming out, you know?
Yeah, that's right. John Brooks, if he does get the call-up, will be the only player here with World Cup minutes, having also scored that goal against Ghana. How can we forget?
I thought he was our best center back at the Nations League final.
Yeah, agreed. I don't understand
He brings that tall presence as well, physicality, aggression, being able to build out from the back, having that pressure that he's learned in the Bundesliga, facing against giants like Bayern Munich and Borussia Dortmund, Leipzig, being able to go ahead and translate that against teams like Grenada and El Salvador should be no sweat for someone of that level. But again, players like Aaron Long coming out after injury, now being introduced against the U.S. men's national team, there's a little bit of pressure being able to go ahead and solidify your spot before Qatar. So hopefully his mentality is there, obviously, to go ahead and achieve what he's looking to do. But right now, again, Nick, with the limited amount of minutes that we have going into Qatar, it's not a time to go ahead and be experimenting. I think we need to go ahead and solidify, bring back the big man, give him those minutes, make sure him and Zimmerman are really nice together, and then, whoever's in form can go ahead and back him up if needed.
Yeah, that's what I think too. There's only 360 minutes left of ball until the World Cup. So it's not enough.
Well, our players here, I know that we'll go ahead and continue to bring coverage of the Nations League, live tweet updates and Instagram posts as well, and a little bit of more discussions. You can tune in as the games progress. But we'll go ahead and move over here to some news, transfer news related to U.S. men's national team players. And there's a handful of news, what you heard, what seems reasonable, what's best for the players, so-and-so. And we can go ahead and discuss that here as I put up our little visual here. U.S. men's national team transfer rumors. These are just some of the players that I highlighted with John Brooks, his time at Wolfsburg coming to an end, where he could be possibly headed. Christian Pulisic, right now, a name being tossed around by the English media to go ahead and maybe come over to Liverpool. maybe come down to Serie A for Juventus. Those are some of the chit chat that I've heard regarding Christian Pulisic. I know that his time as Chelsea is a little bit iffy fan base. Some of it's behind it, some of them are not. There's a lot of criticism behind Werner Havertz and Christian Pulisic and Mount right now, those Chelsea boys right now. But he seems to not translate that pressure from Chelsea to the country level. I think the country level has its own pressure right now, and he's going through something. It's Nick, you said it's his villain origin story, is what's beginning here for Christian Pulisic.
Yes, sir. He's got a mullet, the blonde hair, and he's still got the best goals per 90 out of every Chelsea attacking player. So,
do we see him leaving Chelsea anytime soon? Maybe this mercato?
I don't think he's leaving this year. I think they'll have one more chance at it. As much as I hate it, I don't think Tuchel Ball sets up any of their attacking players to be successful. And
Agreed.
so I think their spot, considering the other players, John Brooks, I've heard Hoffenheim, that'd be cool. Staying in the Bundesliga, getting sharp minutes, possibly partnering up with his lad Chris.
Mm.
And then McKinney Tottenham, right?
Yeah, with the introduction of Pogba back at Juventus, it raises some questions for Juventus right now, with some players, young ones, showing some promise. Who's going to go ahead and stay, who's not. So they'll definitely have to go ahead and make some room. And Weston McKennie is one that Tottenham is currently interested in. And I know Antonio Conte rates the player. It would go ahead and bring Weston McKennie to a top 6 Premier League side. I think under Conte, who is a league established manager, he could go ahead and exploit the best of Weston McKennie. And that could be a favorable move for him. But again, unlikely there, unsure where that stands. It's in the air. It's all down to how Juventus plays around with their midfield pieces. I think with who they have, Rovella coming back, Fagioli, Pogba, Arthur, Zakaria, Locatelli. I don't want to go down.
I just don't think McKinney scored like 60% of their midfield goals in the last 2 seasons.
The fans rate him. And what I see is that the fans enjoy Weston McKennie. And I think they are projecting that next season he is going to go ahead and be part of their plans. Nothing like he's going to go ahead and move to Tottenham.
That's interesting. What I've seen is they criticize McKinney heavily more than any other players because I think Juve fans are being a little bit xenophobic. But that's just me.
I would be a good move. I honestly do. It's not one of the big clubs in the world, but Antonio Conte, he's got that style to get really good work rate, good effort. His midfield has always been, his main part of his formation, play 3 in the back. And his Juventus team back in the day, his Inter Milan team, he's always had 3 solid midfielders that worked their butts off. And so I think that actually would be a good move, but perhaps staying at Juventus might be his best option. We'll have to see that. And Pulisic, I'd love to see him leave Chelsea. For one, get away from a drama club like that, play for Liverpool or anything. And just the rotation right now, Chelsea's got 6 forwards that they rotate around, essentially. And it's like he needs a team where he's going to be playing consistently, not start one game and then be nowhere near the starting 11 the next game. So I think it's important for him to move. And John Brooks, he knows the Bundesliga, so like Nick said, going to Hoffenheim might be a good option for him.
Actually,
go ahead.
Okay, going back to Weston McKennie, actually, who says he can't beat out Pogba to a starting position? I haven't seen an informed Pogba in 4 years. So
Weston McKennie could also be utilized that wide sometimes in this Allegri ball, which is so dreadful to watch. And I know the fans don't like it, but he could be playing left wing for all I know. Weston McKennie, pieces could be moved to fit Weston McKennie, Locatelli, Pogba, all these players. I don't know how Allegri is going to go ahead and set that up, but who says he can't outperform Pogba? Man.
I don't rate Pogba too much anymore. Pogba sits around to have one good performance in every 10 matches and collects a paycheck and gets a haircut. And maybe I'm biased because I hate United, but I could never have that player in my midfield. Sorry.
I guess we'll see if he does shine in the Serie A, if that moves goes through, and hopefully Weston McKennie stays. It'll be interesting coming back at the end of that season next year. So save the date, June, what is it? The 7th right now? 8th?
It's the 9th.
The 9th.
It's the 9th. Okay. The 9th. Save the
Close.
date, June 9th, 2023. Come back to see Weston McKennie versus Pogba battle. If they do stay at Juventus, if they're both at Juventus. But a confirmed move, Brendan Aronson from RB Salzburg moving over to Leeds. Positive move, negative move, Nick?
30 million. That's good. That's a big price tag for a little bit of an unproven winger to that level, joining a relegation side to try to keep them up. I mean, good move for him. I think he's finally got a chance to showcase himself and an American coach that's way better than Berhalter.
Agreed.
That probably is going to utilize him a lot. So I think it's a great move. Now, if Leeds stay up or not, that'll actually be the deterrent. Like, that'll determine if it was a good move or not.
Fair. I think there's something in his clause that he's able to. Mm-hmm. Another move that's possible to Leeds is Tyler Adams, also linked to Benfica and Sevilla here. Thoughts on him departing out of the Bundesliga, Sean? Is that a good move? Not a good move? Is it time for him to go ahead and find minutes elsewhere?
That's a tough one because Leipzig have been on the up and up. They just won the cup in Germany. Seems like they might have a coach that they want to move forward with, and he could prove himself. But again, it's the Bundesliga. It's like a 99% chance that Bayern's going to win next year. It's tough because if he goes to Leeds, he's in the Premier League, which is always a good move to go to the Premier League, whether you're at the top of the table or the bottom of the table. But Benfica is a great option as well, and Sevilla seem to really be starting to take under Lopetegui. Champions League, all that is great added bonus. So for me, it's really tough. I think it would be good for him to stay, and then if he were to move, it's really important not which he decides to go for. So
I just think the club and Leipzig are losing trust in his ability to go where they want to be in the next couple of years.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I think it's probably best for him to move on. But I just don't know if I think he's going to get bullied in the Prem and make Jesse Marsch look like Ted Lasso.
One last transfer for us here, guys, and then we'll wrap up here the transfer rumors. And that's something that sparked today. Conrad de la Fuente grabbing interest from Real Betis.
That's so funny. That's so funny. Like one of our flops of the year. I love Conrad, but one of our flops of the year is going to go replace the biggest flop in Mexico history.
Diego
Lainez, the Mexican Messi. Like, come on. Like, that's comedy. That's pure comedy.
Yeah, I saw that they are interested in more attacking options, especially at the flank. So Conrad de la Fuente is one of them profiles that fits what they're looking for. These are, again, just rumors that are being thrown out there. It is pretty funny if that were to go through and that replacing the U.S. player, replacing a Mexican player at that level.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
Well, is the reason why they're interested in him is that he's a former Barcelona player. Have you noticed how many players that play for Betis were Barcelona flops or not flops?
Name one.
Bartra,
Teo, Bellerin.
Christian Teo is leaving. That's why they're interested in Conrad de la Fuente, is what I read.
Who was the other one? But anyways, they've got a few over there, and I think that would be a great move for him, honestly. I mean, Betis are on the up and up too, and Manuel Pellegrini's got the pedigree, and just watching them this last year, they're a fun football team to watch. They're truly playing some amazing football. So,
and he had a tough time at Marseille. It was a competitive program this year from top to bottom in that starting lineup. You had Under, who had his best season to date. Milik up top. You just had so much quality in that lineup that it was hard for a young player like Conrad coming from Liga 2. Liga 2.
I only played a couple games. I mean, for Barcelona, just a few.
Mm-hmm. So I think he just had a tough time, and I think a place at Real Betis will be in an environment where he's a little more similar to the play style. And I think I'll have more success.
Good to hear. Thanks for all the input, guys. I want to go ahead and wrap up with a few questions here. Are we looking pretty optimistic going ahead of the Nations League? 2 fixtures here. Nick, do you think the U.S. is going to come out with 2 W's?
2 dubs.
Sean, how about yourself?
Yeah, I think we're going to smack Grenada, and I think we might have a disappointing win against El Salvador.
We seem to have a lot of those.
Like 1-0 or something like that. You know? But,
Oof.
Yeah.
Nick, who's a player we should be looking out for the next 2 games?
I do think we'll see Haji Wright again, so I want to see him bag some goals because he hasn't like looked horrible. He's just hasn't had minutes, like you said. We need a little bit of solid time for someone, and so I think Haji Wright. And if he doesn't score goals, then that means he's probably not ready for this level because we're playing Grenada, El Salvador.
Sean, is there someone that we should be looking out for the next 2 games? You think it's going to pop off?
I have a feeling that this is Aronson's breakout tournament. I think he's going to establish himself in the next 2 games and really perform well. So I'm excited to see him.
All right, guys. No, I'm on the Sean boat with them. I think Brendan Aronson the next 2 games is who we should go ahead and take a look at. Hopefully weaker defenses with a man in form for the U.S. He can go ahead and just staple his name in that score sheet. So, guys, I just want to go ahead and say it's always great to go ahead and discuss the U.S. men's national team. Sean, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on the podcast here. Many more to come. Guys, you guys can go ahead and follow Sean here on Twitter at Sean Edge Coaching. We post amazing pictures of his victory pictures with his kids. Nice gold medals,
Yeah,
and the trophies. But again, a lot of input was said here. We got a lot of roster reaction, recent results for the men's national team, some transfer rumors, our inputs on the players, good move or good not move. And just stay tuned here on our website as more information comes out, articles and blogs. You can tune in. On Twitter, you can go ahead and join the discussion, take a vote on our polls. And on Instagram, we'd love to go ahead and see your pictures. If you tag us, we'll definitely go ahead and post it on our stories. So I want to go ahead and thank everyone at home for tuning in and hope that you have a great rest of your night.
We appreciate y'all.
Thanks, guys.